We learned this week who the fattest bear is. We learned that the votes had been counted in the annual contest to determine the most pleasingly rotund ursine inhabitant of Katmai National Park in Alaska.
Did she tell you where it was?
Listeners may be suspicious at this point that we kind of burned all the obvious bear jokes when we did this bit last year, and listeners would be broadly correct. Anyway, we learned that...
The time has come. This year's winner is... Grazer.
Oh.
She is this year's chubby champion.
And for the second year running, Grazer's repeat triumph, possibly at least partially enabled by a sympathy vote attached to the fact that her final rival for this year's title, known as Chunk, had earlier attacked two of her cubs, with fatal consequences in one instance.
Stop it.
Well, quite. Boo, Chunk. Boo. We also learned that one should always pile in on the prognostications of Monocle's Bear Desk chief, Laura Kramer, who called this result as long ago as last Friday's Monocle Daily.
I think that 128 Grazer, who was last year's Fat Bear Week champion, she's a highly defensive mother. I think she'll pull really well with the audience because of this fact.
Keen, as we always are, to share our expertise with listeners, especially if it might lighten the wallets of their bookmakers, we asked Laura if she had any tips for Romford Greyhounds this coming Saturday evening.
My expertise is principally in bears. Please don't waste my time with this nonsense.
Thanks, Laura. But... sticking with the subject of obese, waddling behemoths with gingerish hair who have recently been seeking your vote, hoping to get elected for a second time... You're too kind. We learned this week that Donald Trump has a friend.
Tonight, a blockbuster new account of Donald Trump's close relationship with Vladimir Putin, their alleged private phone calls after Trump left office, and news that Trump secretly sent the Russian president COVID equipment. We
learned from a new book by Bob Woodward, who in fairness does have some form finding out stuff about occupants of the White House.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
That Donald Trump called Vladimir Putin at least 7 times after leaving office, and that at least that many conversations between the pair ensued, from which we appear to have learned that Russian phones don't have caller ID. We have not as yet learned precisely what the pair discussed, which means that we haven't learned that Trump wasn't reading aloud from any of the documents in the boxes of classified material he'd purloined from the White House and stacked floor-to-ceiling in Mar-a-Lago bathrooms, and though it is tempting to rule out any such scenario on the basis that it would necessitate Trump reading... We have learned since the story broke that the Kremlin denies everything, which means it absolutely happened. And we learned that Bob Woodward cannot look forward to a cover blurb from Trump for any future editions unless he wants to excerpt some of the assessment of the book issued by the Trump campaign, the phrasing of which strongly suggests it might have been dictated by someone close to the book's subject, judge for yourself, as read by Monocle's Measured Critiques desk chief, Fernando Augusto Pacheco.
Bob Woodward is a total sleazebag who had lost it mentally, and he's low, lethargic, incompetent, and overall a boring person with no personality.
So, 3 stars? We learned, however... that one prominent American conservative thinker had some ideas about how Woodward, or indeed anyone suffering torpor similar to that diagnosed by Trump, might buck themselves up somewhat. We learned that Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican of Georgia's 14th District, and thanks again, Georgia 14th, had taken time out from accusing President Joe Biden of leveling swing states with artificially created hurricanes to endorse the healing properties of unpasteurized milk. Her words now voiced by Monocle's What Could Go Wrong desk chief, Anita Riota.
Raw milk does a body good. Make America healthy again.
We learned, however, when we looked it up, that consumption of raw milk is much more likely to cause illness, including but not limited to meningitis, influenza and tuberculosis. And to judge by another enthusiast...
all I can say is that since I was here last year, I only drank raw milk.
Symptoms including an urge to fake traffic accidents involving roadkill or saw the heads off dead whales. But... Returning to where we came in, which is to say to a dubiously stringent competition probably broadly aimed at raising environmental consciousness, so fine, whatever, we also learned this week of the winner of the first ever Glasgow tree-hugging tournament. We learned that Scotland's inaugural champion plant embracer was a schoolteacher named Hannah Willow, which makes this the greatest moment for nominative determinism since Norman-ative determinism went into nominative determinism. We learned that Ms. Willow now has her sights set on the World Tree-Hugging Championships, an actual thing held annually in Finland, and while we obviously wish her well with this ambition, for the moment, take a bow. Come on, bough, B-O-U-G-H, as in the main branch of a tree.
I get it.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I see.
Makes sense, yeah.
Got it.
Was always absolutely confident that that was totally going to be worth it. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Muller.